something you're concerned about his availability for the game, or do you feel like it's most likely just?
We'll see. I don't know, really. You know how illnesses are this time of year, so you don't quite know how people are going to respond day to day. So sometimes it clears up in 24 hours, and sometimes it doesn't. So not overly concerned, I guess, is the best answer.
With the finger for Josh that popped up this week, we weren't able to ask him about that. It happened in the game on a throw late in the first quarter?
I'm not sure exactly what throw. I believe it was. But, yes, in the game it popped up.
How much of an issue has that been as he's kind of worked through it this week?
Well, I mean, he was sore a little bit early part of the week from it. He's so physically tough, mentally tough. He just takes it one day at a time and gets the treatment he needs, and then come Sunday, he's ready to go.
Sorry, just to clarify, that sore with the finger and also with the neck.
What's that?
When you were saying he was kind of sore this week, do you mean with the finger? With both?
Yeah, he was asking about the finger overall. Yes, the finger and the neck. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With Tre'Davious, we haven't really got an update with him and his recovery. Where is he at right now?
He's in every day, John, and working like Tre'Davious works. He's so elite in his mindset and his approach. Unbelievably disciplined, focused on getting himself back. So he's hard at work along with the training staff.
I know with the ACL, he was open about it was tough mentally for him, especially early in that. How have you seen him in that aspect handle the injury and his return?
Yeah, I would say not that he was bad before, but I would say much better with this situation. Just his daily mindset, if you will, his interactions. Each of those situations was a little bit different, though, too, respectfully to Trey there. So he just seems like he's on a good path to recovery.
Is some of that being able to draw on going through it already, or where does that come from, that improvement?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I get a better question for him, but that's perspective, I think, is like, hey, that other injury was very significant. This one's significant also. Any injury is. That said, it's not quite as extensive as the other one. Now, that's me saying that, and it's probably, like I said, fairness to Trey, a better question for him. But he does seem like he's in a better headspace, as well as his physical approach day to day.
Sean, apologies, you might have been asked this earlier in the week, so sorry for making you repeat yourself. But since coming off the bye week, your team has had to play with this almost playoff mindset, knowing the stakes of what a loss could mean at this point in the season. How much is just the mentality that your team has had to play with over the last 4 weeks make, them more comfortable, or make Sunday night's matchup with the stakes as high as they are a little bit easier for them if that's the case?
Yeah, I don't think easier is the word. I know where you're coming from, though, and I think really the best way to describe it is being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? So we've been in this situation for weeks, and our players, our team are very resilient, and we're led by our leaders, and those guys have done a phenomenal job leading this team, and we've been through a lot, even going back to last season, and so you learn from those experiences, you lean on those experiences moving forward.
With Dion, if you guys have said that he's had his best season to date this year, what have you seen from him out of this season? I know we asked a couple weeks ago about this, but just with a larger body of work, what is he doing that's making him play at such a high level?
Well, I think there's value in continuity, number one, from a coaching staff standpoint with Coach Cromer and Coach Gunn there, and then consistency and somewhat of continuity with the five that we've had since game one this year, although there was a couple new pieces with Connor and Cybo there. And then consistency with Dion's routine and what the work he does with Will Greenberg and our strength staff there, and his daily approach to his profession and his life overall. So you're continuing to see Dion mature, grow, develop, and I think that's part of the cool piece about this is we've talked since day one about being in a transactional business, very as transformational as we can be, and I think Dion's a great example of that in terms of when he's gotten the support and when he's leaned into the support, what has happened with his career in this case.
What have you seen from on in practice this week? Obviously, understanding he didn't make the active roster for game day last week, and now going into this finale.
Very urgent, always professional, elite mindset. That's what I've noticed the most this week, and it's good to see. It really is.
If you go back to after the Broncos game, Mitch and Josh came out to the podium, and it was about as despondent as you've seen probably Josh ever. And Mitch said something interesting. He said, "This is when good teams come together." Have you seen from that moment the team come together, and how?
Well, I think more than anything, there was an identity that started to take shape after that game. Obviously, a change was made, but sometimes what's more impactful is how people respond to the change and how people respond in adverse situations. So I started to see our team come together. I started to see an identity start to form and be built and take shape, and that again the credit goes to the players for taking the reins at that point, and not just with their play, but their day-to-day approach, and I think that's probably the biggest thing overall.
Since Joe took over the role, have you seen him kind of develop in it? Like, I guess since he, took over back after week 10, like, how has he, maybe you've seen him grow in the role, get more comfortable in it? I guess how has he kind of changed over that time?
Well, I believe he's done a good job. Like I mentioned before with Joe's journey, respectfully, when you watch Joe and what he's been through his time in the college ranks, even before that with the Saints and then Carolina, and then having the opportunity here to build on some of the things he wanted to perhaps do the same and some things he wanted to maybe do differently. And so you're always learning. I think Joe really embraces that growth mindset and trying to be the best he possibly can. And I think that's what he's putting into place now and what he's applying more than anything. And you're seeing the results. Excuse me.
If you watch any of the mic'd up segments that we put out, or if you listen to press conferences from our players throughout the weeks, there's a lot of encouragement and a lot of love in the way that the guys speak about each other. How does that start with you and your messaging, and how can that help once the guys hit the field on Sunday?
It's a great question, Matt. I think the biggest thing overall is that we have an environment here, and it's not perfect, right? And it's not for everyone, quite honestly, that allows for players to be open and be vulnerable and say the word love and really lean into one another, support one another, encouraging one another. This is a tough business, and you go week to week or day to day, and like life is, you go through ups and downs, and a lot of thoughts get in your head, and so it's important that we can continue to encourage one another and truly support and love one another, because it's also a very public job for most of us. So there's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of challenges, but the biggest thing is guys know that they're not alone, and guys or gals in this case with our entire football team know they're not alone, and we're all here for each other. And I think that's part of what you're seeing with the identity that's been built and been formed, and that resiliency that comes from getting through those challenges together.
How have you seen the leaders kind of take that and run with it? Oftentimes you see some of the defensive players on the offensive side of the sideline during games encouraging each other and vice versa.
Right. I think one of the things you saw, which is really cool to me and special, was in this past weekend's game. It was the timeout leading to that 3rd and 3 where Josh ran for the first down, and you saw defensive players, special teams players actually out on the field, encouraging one another, challenging some of the offensive guys, and I've seen that with the offense and special teams as well going the other way. So I think that really says a lot about who these guys are and the identity that's been formed over the last 5, 6 games, 6, 7 games, whatever it's been, and you don't see that all the time. Usually you see guys, hey, the offense is out there, one unit's out, or the other side is back on the bench looking at the scoreboard trying to watch it. That really speaks to me about who these guys are in the leadership.
From a leadership standpoint, we had asked about Rasul Douglas right when he got here, how he had some of those leadership traits, and you had mentioned at the time that it's hard to lead when you're new to a team, and I know he's still pretty new here, but have you seen him grow in that area at all, of now that he's been here a little bit longer, being able to lead some from the group?
I think by example more than anything, and then Russell has a way about him that allows him to fit into a team's culture and a team's environment rather quickly, and just in the way he carries himself, the way he approaches ball, how he studies, and I think that just speaks to how he's built, his personality, his DNA, maybe as well the way he was raised. So I think it's been mutually beneficial.
Quick follow on Joe Brady. When he first took over, the first couple of games, although it was the same system, he could probably add his own wrinkles into that. How much harder is it now that he's a little bit less of an unknown because there's a few games where he, tape for defenses to kind of prepare for?
Right, that's real. When you first come into a situation, there's not all these printouts on, hey, here's a play caller's tendencies, and as you go and as you continue to throw pitches, I'll use that analogy as a pitcher, the data starts to add up, and so people get a little bit more data or a sample size on you, and they're, I guess, have more information from which to draw from to try and get a better feel for your tendencies and how you want to call games.
Is there a player who surprised you the most this season?
Several players really. I would say the two linebackers. I'm going to stay on the defensive side for a second, but the two linebackers, I would say, for Saibo to come in and do what he's done really since day one as a rookie and to play guard. Not that I was doubting his skill, but the mentality that you have to play offensive line, down in and down out, that's rare that a rookie can come in and do that and approach it every week with a consistent mindset.
Surprised you say the linebackers, because all us experts were scratching our heads when you guys didn't address that position in the offseason. And it seemed like you knew all along that Terrell.
Yeah, I would, and I'm not saying that. I felt like we were going to be in a good spot. But I would say from T-Dot and his journey that he's been on, it's been, again, one of the joys of the season for me. And, he was special teams focused pretty much, in and out of the lineup from a starter, backup, stepped into play when the player was injured, went through the journey that he had in training camp in competition for the middle linebacker position. And stayed the course. And that says a lot about who he is as a person, who he is and how he's grown, and who he is now as a player. And I say both of those guys because to watch their relationship build, you need to be so attached at the hip when you're quarterbacking the defense like those two do, led by TB. But T-Dot has to be his co-pilot and know when he needs to turn left and when he needs to turn right. So just for two players maybe that haven't done it to this point, to come in and do it at the level they've done it at. And TB, to credit him with, it's hard to see a player and a person like Tremaine leave. Again, part of the NFL, and we're happy for him and his success. Felt, and Brandon would tell you this, felt pretty comfortable with, even though TB had not played a lot of snaps, felt fairly comfortable with his instincts.